Okay, this is kind of set for all of the tall Dutch people, of which I am not one, clearly, but okay. Does this, no, it doesn't telescope? Okay. Good afternoon. I am really delighted to be with you for this festival. And I'm going to read from the Book of Forgiving, which I wrote with my dad. Just a couple of the chapters. So I want to read from the introduction, which kind of tells you why we wrote the book, and then a couple of the other chapters that I found helpful. Okay. So the introduction is titled Into Wholeness. Just one note, the voice of the I in this book the I is my father, not me. So if it sounds kind of odd, you'll get why. He had many wounds. She spoke with the precision of a coroner. In the upper abdomen were 5 wounds. These wounds indicated that different weapons were used to stab him, or a group of people had stabbed him. Mrs. Nhlauli continued her harrowing testimony to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. She spoke about the disappearance and murder of her husband, Sicelo. In the lower part, he also had wounds. In total, there were 43. They poured acid on his face. They chopped off his right hand just below the wrist. I don't know what they did with that hand. A wave of horror and nausea rose in me. Now it was 19-year-old Babalwa's turn to speak. She was 8 when her father died. Her brother was only 3. She described the grief, police harassment, and hardship in the years since her father's death. And then she said, I would love to know who killed my father. So would my brother. Her next words stunned me and left me breathless. We want to forgive them. We want to forgive, but we don't know who to forgive. As chairman of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I have often been asked how the people of South Africa were able to forgive the atrocities and injustices they suffered under apartheid. Our journey in South Africa was quite long and treacherous. Today, it is hard to believe that up until our first democratic election in 1994, ours was a country that institutionalized racism, inequality, and oppression. In apartheid South Africa, only white people could vote, earn a high-quality education, and expect advancement or opportunity. There were decades of protests and violence. Much blood was shed during our long march to freedom. When, at last, our leaders were released from prison, it was feared that our transition to democracy would become a bloodbath of revenge and retaliation. Miraculously, we chose another future. We chose forgiveness. At a time, we knew that telling the truth and healing our history was the only way to save our country from certain destruction. We did not know where this choice would lead us. The process we embarked on through the TRC was, as all real growth proves to be, astoundingly painful and profoundly beautiful. I have also been asked what I learned about forgiveness from that experience and from the many places I have visited during my life where there has been conflict and suffering, from Northern Ireland to Rwanda. This book is a response to this question. It is also an answer to the unspoken question that lies behind. How do we forgive? This book is written for those who need forgiveness, whether they want to forgive or to be forgiven. There are days when I wish I could erase from my mind all the horrors I have witnessed. It seems there is no end to the creative ways we humans can find to hurt each other, and no end to the reasons we feel justified in doing so. There is also no end to the human capacity for healing. In each of us, there is an innate ability to create joy out of suffering, to find hope in the most hopeless of situations, and to heal any relationship in need of healing. I would like to share with you two simple truths. There is nothing that cannot be forgiven, and there is no one undeserving of forgiveness. When you see and understand that we are all bound to one another, whether by birth, by circumstance, or simply by our shared humanity, then you will know this to be true. I have often said that in South Africa there would have been no future without forgiveness. Our rage and our quest for revenge would have been our destruction. This is true for each of us individually as it is for us globally. There have been times when each and every one of us has needed to forgive. There have also been times when each and every one of us has needed to be forgiven. And there will be many times again. In our own ways, we are all broken. Out of that brokenness, we hurt each other. Forgiveness is the journey we take towards healing the broken parts. It is how we become whole again. Whether it is the tormentor who tortured me brutally, the spouse who betrayed me, the boss who passed me over for a promotion, or the driver who cut me off during my early morning commute, I faced the same choice, to forgive or to seek revenge. We face this choice of whether or not to forgive as individuals, as families, as communities, and as a deeply connected world. The quality of human life on our planet is nothing more than the sum total of our daily interactions with one another. Each time we help and each time we harm, we have dramatic impact on our world. Because we are human, some of our interactions will go wrong, and then we will hurt or be hurt, or both. It is the nature of being human, and it is unavoidable. Forgiveness is the way we set those interactions right. It is the way we mend tears in the social fabric. It is the way we stop our human community from unraveling. There are countless studies that enumerate the social, spiritual, psychological, and even physiological benefits of forgiveness. The actual process of forgiveness, however, has often been left a mystery. Yes, it is good and helpful to let go of resentment, but how do we let go of resentment when we have been harmed? Of course, it is better not to exact retribution. But how can we forego retribution when what has been taken from us cannot be restored? And is it even possible to forgive and still pursue justice? What steps must we follow to achieve forgiveness? How do we heal all the holes in our hearts that come with being the fragile creatures that we are? The path of forgiveness is not an easy one. On this path, we must walk through the muddy shoals of hatred and anger and make our way through grief and loss to find the acceptance that is the hallmark of forgiveness. While it would be much easier to make this journey if the routes were marked clearly, it is not. The boundary line between those who have caused harm and those who have been harmed is not clear either. Each of us stands at one moment as the one who has been hurt, and at the next moment as the one who is inflicting the hurt. And in the next moment, we straddle the boundary, lashing out in pain and rage. We all cross these lines often. Wherever you stand, whatever you have done, whatever has been done for you, we hope this book will help you. Whatever's been done to you, we hope this book will help you. Together, we will explore each aspect of the fourfold path of forgiveness, telling the story, naming the hurt, granting forgiveness, and renewing or releasing the relationship. We invite you to join us on this healing, transformational journey. It doesn't matter whether you're having trouble moving forward from the wrongs that were done to you, or whether you need the courage to admit the wrongs you have done. Forgiveness is nothing less than the way we heal the world. We heal the world by healing each and every one of our hearts. The process is simple, but it is not easy. I'm writing this book with my daughter Mpho, who is a fellow priest. Mpho has worked deeply with parishioners and pilgrims in their search for forgiveness and healing. She was pursuing a doctorate on the subject of forgiveness and brings a wealth of knowledge to this collaboration. She also brings a very personal story of her own journey along the fourfold path and shares her struggle to understand and forgive. This book is an invitation for you to walk with us on the path of forgiveness. In it, we will share our personal stories, along with the stories of others who have inspired us, and what we have learned about the process of forgiving. We have seen this process work to transform situations and restore relationships among family, friends, strangers, and enemies alike. We have seen it drain the venom from the small, everyday slights we can carelessly inflict on one another and bring healing in the wake of the most brutal acts of cruelty imaginable. It is our most cherished belief that there is no one who is irredeemable, no situation that is without hope, and no crime that cannot be forgiven. If you are seeking to forgive, we hope to point the way to freedom. We'll show you how you can release a perpetrator's hold on you and free yourself from the biting chains of resentment and anger that bind you to your experience. If you are in need of forgiveness, it is our hope that this book will show you a clear path to freeing yourself from the shackles of your past and help you to move forward in your life. When we witness the anguish and harm we have caused, when we ask others to forgive us, and when we make restitution, when we forgive and restore our relationships, we return to our inherent nature. Our nature is goodness. Yes, we do much that is bad, but our essential nature is good. If it were not, then we would not be shocked and dismayed when we harm one another. When someone does something ghastly, it makes the news because it's the exception to the rule. We live surrounded by so much love, kindness, and trust that we forget that it is remarkable. Forgiveness is a way we return what has been taken from us and restore the love, kindness, and trust that has been lost. With each act of forgiveness, whether small or great, we move towards wholeness. Forgiveness is nothing less than how we bring peace to ourselves and our world. The book of forgiveness, or forgiving, is written first and foremost for those who need to forgive. We've done so because even those who need forgiveness must also forgive the harm that was done to them. This is not an excuse or a justification for what we have done, just a recognition of the harm that gets passed along from hand to hand and generation to generation. No one is born criminal. No one is born cruel. Each of us is born whole, but that wholeness can so easily be shattered. In South Africa, we chose to seek forgiveness rather than revenge. That choice averted a bloodbath. For every injustice, there is a choice. As we have said, you can choose forgiveness or revenge, but revenge is always costly. Choosing forgiveness rather than retaliation ultimately serves to make you a stronger and freer person. Peace always comes to those who choose to forgive. While both Mpho and I have seen the effects of drinking the bitter poison of anger and resentment, seen how it corrodes and destroys from the inside out, we have also seen the sweet balm of forgiveness soothe and transform even the most virulent situations. This is why we can say there is hope. We do not enter onto the path of forgiving blithely, nor do we travel without some trepidation that it may not go as planned. Forgiveness is a conversation, and like most important conversations, it needs a language that is clear and honest and sincere. This book will help you learn the language of forgiveness. Along the way, we offer meditations, exercises, and rituals to guide and help you as you walk along the path. Some of the exercises will, we hope, offer comfort and solace, as well as inspire your compassion. We imagine that some of the exercises will also challenge you. We would be guilty of false advertising if we did not tell you that, like all conversations, the outcome of the forgiveness process cannot be known in advance. This book is not a cure-all or a panacea. It is our hope, however, that these pages will guide you to the outcome you seek. We trust that you can learn the skills and disposition of the heart that you will need to repair the relationships, your relationships, and in some important way, contribute to repairing our world. In South Africa, Ubuntu is our way of making sense of the world. The word literally means humanity. It is the philosophy and belief that a person is only a person through other people. In other words, we are human only in relationship to other humans. Our humanity is bound up in one another, and any tear in the fabric of connection between us must be repaired for all of us to be made whole. This interconnectedness is the very root of who we are. To walk the path of forgiveness is to recognize that your crimes harm you as they harm me. To walk the path of forgiveness is to recognize that my dignity is bound up in your dignity, and every wrongdoing hurts us all. Even when we recognize our interconnectedness, forgiveness can still be a difficult path to walk. Some days it will seem as if for every step forward, we take 2 steps back. It is a journey. And before the beginning of any new journey, big or small, there must be the willingness to take the first tentative step forward. There is a Gaelic proverb which states, "Nothing is easy for the unwilling." Without willingness, this journey will be impossible. Before compassion comes the willingness to feel compassion. Before transformation, there must be the belief that transformation is possible, and the willingness to be transformed. Before forgiveness, there must be a willingness to consider forgiving. We'll take this journey with you, even if you believe there is no way you could ever forgive, or if you believe that what you have done is so heinous you could never be forgiven. We will walk with you. If you are afraid or unsure or doubt that your situation could be transformed, we invite you to try. If you are without hope, paralyzed by guilt, drowning in grief, or full of anger, we invite you to come with us. We walk this path with you because we believe it is a path that will offer healing and transformation. We invite you to take this journey with us, not because it will be easy, but because in the end, the path of forgiving is the only path worth taking. And we end with a prayer poem, which is the prayer before the prayer. I want to be willing to forgive, but I dare not ask for the will to forgive in case you give it to me and I'm not yet ready. I'm not yet ready for my heart to soften. I'm not yet ready to be vulnerable again. Not yet ready to see that there is humanity in my tormentor's eyes, or that the one who hurt me may also have cried. I am not yet ready for the journey. I am not yet interested in the path. I am at the prayer before the prayer of forgiveness. Grant me the will to want to forgive. Grant it to me, not yet, but soon. Can I even form the words, forgive me? Dare I even look? Do I dare to see the hurt I have caused? I can glimpse all the shattered pieces of that fragile thing, that soul trying to rise on the broken wings of hope, but only out of the corner of my eye. I am afraid of it, and if I am afraid to see, how can I not be afraid to say, forgive me? Is there a place where we can meet, you and me, the place in the middle, the no man's land, where we straddle the lines, where you are right and I am right too, and both of us are wrong and wronged? Can we meet there and look for the place where the path begins, the path that ends when we forgive? I actually wanted to invite you to try a tiny exercise with me. So in the book are a description of the fourfold path, and then various exercises and meditations that you can engage with, ways of, we invite you to journal, we invite you to do really tactile things, carry a stone, engage in a meditation, tell your story again and again and again as you feel the need to. And so what I'm going to invite you to do is a tiny little forgiveness meditation, and it's a tiny little forgiveness meditation for yourself. And I am going to invite you first to get comfortable. So if it is comfortable for you, put both feet on the ground, floor. Allow yourself to sit back so that you have some support for your back. If it is comfortable for you, I invite you to close your eyes. And then just take a deep breath in through your nose. and out through your nose. And one more deep breath, in through your nose, and out through your nose. And then I want you to call to mind some small thing for which you would like to be forgiven. Doesn't have to be a huge thing, and it's some small thing that is probably known to you alone. And if you were to tell anyone else about it, they might think it's ridiculous that you've been holding on to this for whatever amount of time it is. But something that you just want to let go of. It's kind of been sitting on the back of your neck for months or years. And I invite you to take it out of that corner of your mind that you've stashed it away in and look at it. Just really walk around this incident or fact that you're holding on to about yourself. Give yourself a moment just to tell yourself the story of, what is this? And when you feel satisfied that you have told the story of this fact or incident as well as you can tell it to yourself, I'd like you to express the feelings that you have. Maybe it's shame or embarrassment or anger. And now I'd like you to look with just a little bit of tenderness on yourself. As you recall this incident and the feelings that you have around it, just give yourself a little bit of love and a tiny bit of patience. Yes, you screwed up in whatever way it was that you screwed up. But can you find a drop of patience with yourself for not having got it right? And just an iota of self-love. The recognition that you're not always going to get it right. But you can be sorry. And maybe, if it's needed, you can make amends. Just to let this thing have slightly less of a toehold in your psyche. And I invite you to take another breath. And maybe this pain has shrunk a little bit in size. And if it hasn't, then there's a safe way to come back and really face into it, to look at it again if it's necessary, but with patience, with a little gentleness for yourself. And take one more breath. And let it go. And as you feel ready, I invite you to open your eyes and come back into the room. I don't think that exercise was in the book, but there's something like it. Let's see. How am I doing for time? So I just wanted to do like 5 more minutes, and then I'd really like to give an opportunity for you to ask questions if you have any. And I'm jumping to the last chapter of the book. Back into my father's voice. I broke down. I was the president of the All Africa Conference of Churches. I was making a pastoral visit to Rwanda in 1995, just 1 year after the genocide. I went to Ntarama, a town where hundreds of Tutsis had fled to the church for safety and sanctuary, but the Hutu power movement had respected no church. Strewn across the floor were the remains of the horror. Clothing and suitcases were still littered among the bones. The small skulls of children remained shattered on the floor. Skulls outside the church still had machetes and knives in them. The stench was beyond anything I can describe. I tried to pray, but I could not. I could only cry. Rwanda, like the Holocaust and other genocides before it and after, stands as a testament to our capacity for unconscionable evil. And yet our ability to forgive and heal stands as a rejoinder that we are not made for evil, but for goodness. These spasms of cruelty, violence, hatred, and ruthlessness are the exception, not the rule of our human lives. Indeed, the Gacaca traditional community courts established in Rwanda are an extraordinary example of the ability of a nation that was once convulsed in genocide to heal itself through reconciliation and forgiveness. More than 12,000 community-based courts tried over 1.2 million cases throughout the country. The justice they sought was often restorative rather than punitive. Those who had planned and incited the genocide were punished, but those who were swept up in the internecine conflict were given lower sentences, especially if the perpetrators were repentant and sought reconciliation with the community. The goal was to rebuild communities and the country, to heal and prevent further revenge and violence. This is an example of how forgiveness can help heal an entire country. And take care of each other. We must all be careful with our words. Hurtful words may not be forgotten, but they can be forgiven. We must all strive to be careful with our actions. When we assault another's humanity, we assault our own humanity. Every person wants to be acknowledged and affirmed for who and what they are. A human being of infinite worth, someone with a place in the world. We can't violate another person's dignity without violating our own. Violence, whether in words or deeds, only begets more violence. Violence can never engender peace. Still, I will always pray for the person who holds the weapon. Pray that this person finds compassion and recognizes the humanity he or she shares with the person who may be at the other end of the weapon's sights. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said, "If we could read the secret history of our enemies, we should find in each man's life sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility." When we have hatred for others, we carry that hatred in our own hearts, and it harms us even more, certainly, than it does them. We are created for fellowship. We are created to form the human family, existing together because we are made for one another. We're not made for exclusivity or self-sufficiency, but for interdependence. We break this essential law of our being at our own peril. And how we take care of each other is by cultivating our forgiveness. Forgiveness is like any other quality, compassion, kindness, or generosity. It must be fostered and developed. The ability to forgive is innate, but like any natural talent, it is perfected with practice. When Nelson Mandela went to jail, he was a very angry man. This global role model of forgiveness was not very forgiving on the day when he stepped onto Robben Island to begin his prison sentence. It took the many years in jail, years he spent cultivating a daily practice of forgiveness, for him to become the luminous example of tolerance who was able to put our wounded country on the road to reconciliation and healing. Each of us has multiple opportunities each day to practice small acts of forgiveness. We can learn to move through the forgiveness cycle with an emotional sure-footedness born of practice. I can forgive the driver who cut me off in morning traffic. I acknowledge the spark of irritation and fear evoked in me, even while I recognize that I don't know her story. She may have been late to work for a tyrannical boss. She may have been distracted by her baby wailing in the back seat. Sounds like me. She may have had a list of things to do today that is longer than her arm. To practice cultivating forgiveness, I must learn to look at the bigger picture and know that not every action that bothers me is a personal attack. I can practice forgiveness with my friends and family. Oh, I have lots of opportunities to try that. And I can practice it in my workplace and in my community. When I develop a mindset of forgiveness rather than a mindset of grievance, I don't just forgive a particular act, I become a more forgiving person. With a grievance mindset, I look at the world and see all that is wrong. When I have a forgiveness mindset, I start to see the world not through grievance, but through gratitude. In other words, I look at the world and start to see what's right. There is a special kind of magic that happens when I become a more forgiving person. It's something quite remarkable. What was once a grave affront melts into nothing more than a thoughtless or careless act. What was once a reason for rupture and alienation becomes an opportunity for repair and greater intimacy. When I cultivate forgiveness in my small everyday encounters, I am preparing for a time when a much larger act of forgiveness will be asked of me, as it almost certainly will. It seems none of us journeys through life unscathed by tragedy, disappointment, betrayal, or heartbreak. But each of us has at his or her disposal a most powerful skill that can transmute the pain. Even when we thoroughly forgive, our grief may not end, our loss may still be unacceptable, and the hurt may still be there. But we discover time and again amazing accounts of people who have found a way to make meaning out of their suffering and transform it. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross sums it up beautifully when she says, "The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These people have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep, loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen." And I trust and believe that I'm in a room full of beautiful people. I have the last piece of the book. If you're standing before me beaten and bleeding, I cannot tell you to forgive. I cannot tell you to do anything, since you are the one who was beaten. If you have lost a loved one, I cannot tell you to forgive. You are the person who has lost a loved one. If your spouse betrayed you, if you were abused as a child, if you have endured any of the myriad injuries humans can inflict upon one another, I cannot tell you what to do. But I can tell you that it all matters. Whether we love or we hate, whether we help or we harm, it all matters. I can tell you that I hope if I am the one who is beaten and bloodied, I will be able to forgive and pray for my abuser. I hope that I would be able to recognize him as my brother and a precious child of God. I hope I never give up on the reality that every person has the capacity to change. We can't create a world without pain or loss or conflict or hurt feelings. But we can create a world of forgiveness. We can create a world of forgiveness that allows us to heal from those losses and pain and repair our relationships. The Book of Forgiving shares the path to finding forgiveness, but ultimately no one can tell you to forgive. We can ask you to do so. We can invite you on the journey. We can show you what has worked for others. We can tell you that the healing we have seen for those who have walked the fourfold path is humbling and transformative. All of us must walk our own paths at our own pace. All of us write our own books of forgiving every single day. What will be your book? Will it be a story of hope and redemption, or misery and resentment? In the end, the forgiveness you seek, whether it is for another or for yourself, will never be found in a book. You carry it with you in your heart. It is described by your humanity. You just need to look inside and discover it. Discover the power it has to change your life and to change your world. And let's listen to what the heart hears. Here is my book of forgiving. The pages are well worn. Here are the places where I struggled. Here are the places I passed through with ease. Here is my book of forgiving. Some of its pages are tear-stained and torn. Some are decorated with joy and laughter. Some of its pages are written with hope. Some are etched with despair. This is my book of forgiving. This book is full of stories and secrets. It tells how I finally broke free from being defined by injury and chose to become a creator again, offering forgiveness, accepting that I am forgiven, creating a world of peace. And I'm done.